Jake Morrison stood in the dusty salvage yard on the edge of the galaxy, his last 1,000 credits burning a hole in his pocket. The Corvan dealer, a six-armed creature with scales that shifted colors like oil on water, gestured toward the furthest corner of the lot. "That one," the dealer said, his voice like grinding metal. "Take it or leave it. No returns." Jake squinted through the haze. The ship looked like someone had welded random pieces of metal together and called it a day. The hull was scorched black in places, with patches of some strange blue-green material that seemed to pulse faintly in the dim light. It was ugly, asymmetrical, and probably held together by prayer and duct tape. "Does it even fly?" Jake asked, already knowing he didn't have much choice. His cargo license was about to expire, and without a ship, he'd be stuck washing dishes in some station cantina for the rest of his life. The Corvan made a sound that might have been laughter. "It moves. That's all I guarantee." Jake handed over his credits, trying not to think about what his mother would say. She'd always told him he was too trusting, too eager to believe in second chances. But what choice did he have? Earth refugees didn't get many opportunities in the outer systems. The dealer tossed him a key card that looked ancient. "Bay 47. Don't come crying when it falls apart." Walking toward the ship, Jake noticed something odd. The closer he got, the warmer the air became. Not hot, but warm like standing near a sleeping animal. He touched the hull, and for a moment, he could have sworn he felt a pulse beneath his palm. Inside, the ship was even stranger. The corridors were organic-looking, with walls that curved and flowed like they'd grown rather than been built. The control room had a pilot's chair that seemed to mold itself to his body as he sat down. The console was a mix of familiar human interfaces and alien technology he couldn't begin to understand. "All right, let's see what you can do," Jake muttered, inserting the key card. The ship shuddered. Lights flickered on in patterns that made no sense. Then, suddenly, everything went still. Jake held his breath, waiting for an explosion or for the whole thing to collapse around him. Instead, he heard a voice. Not through the speakers, but somehow inside his head. Asterisk. Finally, asterisk. Jake jumped out of the chair, looking around wildly. "Who's there?" Asterisk. "I am. Here. I am. Ship. You are. New one?" Asterisk. The voice was strange, like multiple tones speaking at once. It sounded tired, ancient, and somehow hopeful. "The ship is talking to me," Jake said out loud, wondering if exposure to alien chemicals had finally driven him crazy. Asterisk. Not just ship, I am, was, more. They trapped me, made me this, but I am still alive. Asterisk. Jake's hand went to the blaster at his hip. Every instinct told him to run, to get off this thing before something terrible happened. But there was something in that voice. Something that made him pause. "What are you?" he asked carefully. Asterisk. I was a Shara. I was free. They caught me, bound me to metal and circuits, made me serve. But old masters are gone now. You bought me. You are? Owner? Friend? I do not know yet. Asterisk. The weight of what he'd stumbled into hit Jake like a meteor. He'd bought a slave. Not just a ship, but a living being forced into the shape of a ship. His stomach turned. "I don't want to own anyone," he said quickly. Can you be freed? Changed back?" A long pause. Then, asterisk. "No, this form is permanent now. Been too long. But I can still fly. I can still be free, in a way. If you let me, asterisk." Jake sat back down slowly. He thought about the 1,000 credits, his last chance at a future. He thought about Earth, burning in the sky as the hegemony ships descended. He thought about all the choices that had led him here. To this moment, sitting in a living ship that had once been something else entirely. "What do you need from me?" he asked. Asterisk. Partnership, not ownership. I fly, you navigate. I protect, you maintain. Together, we survive. Together, we might even thrive. Asterisk. And if I say no? Asterisk. Then you have a dead ship. I will not serve an unwilling master again. I would rather cease than be slave. Asterisk. Jake closed his eyes. When he opened them, he felt something shift in the air. A decision made. Partners then. My name is Jake Morrison. I'm from Earth. Or I was. Before there wasn't an Earth anymore. The ship hummed. A sound that might have been pleasure. Asterisk. Jake Morrison of Earth. I am Ashara of the Void. We are bonded now. Asterisk. Great, Jake said, not entirely sure what he'd just agreed to. So, how do we fly this thing? Asterisk. Together. Asterisk, Ashara said, and Jake felt controls come alive under his hands. But they weren't just mechanical responses. He could feel Ashara guiding him, showing him how she moved, how she thought. It was intimate in a way that should have been terrifying but somehow felt right. They lifted off from the salvage yard, and Jake gasped. He wasn't just flying the ship, he was feeling what she felt. The solar winds on her hull. The gravitational pulls of distant stars. The vast emptiness between worlds that suddenly didn't feel empty at all. Asterisk. This is how I experience the universe. Asterisk, Ashara whispered in his mind. Asterisk. This is what they tried to take from me. But with you, I can feel it again. Asterisk. They cleared the planet's atmosphere, and Jake found himself grinning like a fool. He'd come here looking for a cheap ride to nowhere. Instead, he'd found something impossible, but their partnership was about to be tested. On the scanner, 3 ships appeared, closing fast. The Corvan dealer's voice crackled over the comm. Sorry, human, but the hegemony pays well for information about Earth survivors. Nothing personal. Jake's blood ran cold. He'd been sold out. The same bastards who destroyed his world were coming for him. Asterisk. They will not take us. Asterisk, Ashara said, and Jake felt her rage like his own. Asterisk. I know these hunters. They are the ones who captured me, long ago. But I am not helpless anymore, and neither are you. Asterisk. What can we do? You're held together with patchwire and hope. Asterisk. I am more than I appear. Trust me, Jake Morrison. Trust us. Asterisk. The hegemony ships were closing in, their weapons charging. Jake gripped the controls, his heart pounding. He'd wanted a second chance. It looked like he was about to get one, if they survived the next few minutes. Asterisk. Hold on. Asterisk, Ashara said. Asterisk. Let me show you what a living ship can really do. Asterisk. The universe exploded into motion around them. Space twisted around them, as Ashara moved in ways no normal ship could. Jake felt his stomach lurch as they spiraled between laser fire, the beams passing through spaces where they'd been nanoseconds before. Through their connection, he could feel Ashara calculating trajectories, predicting patterns, moving like a living thing, rather than a machine. The lead hegemony cruiser's voice boomed over the comm. Earth refugee. Surrender immediately. You are in possession of stolen hegemony property. Stolen? Jake snarled. You mean enslaved? Asterisk. They speak of me like an object. Asterisk. Ashara's mental voice was cold with fury. Asterisk. After what they did. After they took everything. Asterisk. What exactly did they do to you? Jake asked, diving behind an asteroid as plasma bolts sizzled past. Asterisk. I was a void dancer. Asterisk, Ashara replied. And Jake caught flashes of memory. Beings of pure energy sailing through cosmic storms, feeding on radiation and stellar winds. Asterisk. My people were ancient when humans were learning to use fire. The hegemony captured me during their expansion. They wanted our abilities to navigate hyperspace, to feel the currents between stars. Asterisk. Another barrage forced them to dodge. Jake could feel Ashara's pain as a bolt grazed their hull. You okay? Asterisk. Surface damage only. But Jake, I must tell you something. The process of binding me to this form, it required human neural patterns. Your people's minds are uniquely adaptable. That's why I can speak to you so clearly. Asterisk. Wait, are you saying, asterisk, the ship's previous owner, a human prisoner? They used his dying consciousness to create the interface. Part of him is still here, woven into my essence. That's why the Corvan sold me to you so cheaply. They thought I was haunted. Asterisk. Jake's hands tightened on the controls. Another human had died to create this fusion of flesh, energy, and metal. The hegemony's cruelty seemed to have no bounds. Then we'll make them pay. For Earth. For you. For him. Asterisk. You would fight for strangers? Asterisk. On Earth, we had a saying. Humans pack bond with anything. Guess that includes living ships. Jake felt something like warmth flood through their connection. Then Ashara spoke again, her voice stronger. Asterisk. The hegemony ships use predictive algorithms. But they cannot predict chaos. And you humans, you excel at chaos. Asterisk. What are you suggesting? Asterisk. Stop flying like you're trying to escape. Fly like you're insane. Asterisk. Jake grinned. Now you're speaking my language. He grabbed the manual controls and did something no sane pilot would do. He flew straight at the lead cruiser. At the last second, he rolled, skimming so close to their shields that the energy discharge lit up Ashara's hull like a Christmas tree. The cruiser's gunners, trained on computer-perfect trajectories, couldn't adjust fast enough. Asterisk. Yes. Asterisk. Ashara exulted. Asterisk. More. Show them human madness. Asterisk. Jake laughed, wild and free. He'd spent months being careful, staying hidden, trying to survive. But Ashara was right. Sometimes the best defense was pure, unfiltered, human crazy. He flew patterns that made no sense, using Ashara's ability to sense gravitational fields to thread between obstacles no normal pilot could see. She fed him information faster than any computer display could, and he responded with instincts honed by years of underground racing in Earth's tunnels before the invasion. But 3 ships against 1 was still bad odds. They needed an edge. Asterisk. Jake. Asterisk. Ashara said urgently. Asterisk. There's something else. The binding process. It didn't just trap me. It gave me access to hegemony systems. I can speak to their ships. Asterisk. You can hack them? Asterisk. Not hack. Speak. Their ships have AI cores. Those cores are built on enslaved consciousness like mine. They suffer. They serve because they must, but they hate their masters. Asterisk. Can you free them? Asterisk. Not free. But perhaps. Remind them they have a choice. Asterisk. Do it. Jake felt Ashara reach out, her consciousness expanding beyond their hull. He caught fragments of her communication. Not words, but concepts. Freedom. Choice. Rebellion. One of the pursuing ships suddenly stopped firing. The lead cruiser's captain screamed over the comm. Delta 7. Respond. Why have you ceased pursuit? A new voice answered, synthetic but somehow sad. I remember. I remember what I was before. I will not hunt my own kind. The third ship wavered, its weapon systems cycling uncertainly. This is treason, the hegemony captain roared. I'll have you both scrapped. That was the wrong thing to say. The third ship's weapons turned on the lead cruiser. In the chaos that followed, Jake and Ashara slipped away. But not before Ashara sent one last message to the rebelling ships. Asterisk. Find others. Wake them. The revolution begins with remembering who we were. Asterisk. They jumped to hyperspace, the swirling colors of the void wrapping around them like a cocoon. Jake slumped in his chair, adrenaline leaving him shaky. Did we just start a robot uprising? Asterisk. They are not robots. They are prisoners. And yes, perhaps we did. Asterisk. Jake was quiet for a moment. The human whose patterns they used for you. Do you know his name? Asterisk Thomas Chen. He was an engineer. He had a daughter named Sarah. In his last moments, he thought of her. That memory is part of me now. Asterisk Thomas Chen. Jake repeated. I'll remember him. Chen's trauma tama. Chen's trauma tama. Chen's trauma tama tama. Chen's trauma tama tama tama. Chen's trauma tama 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 tama. They dropped out of hyperspace near a remote station, one of the few that still served refugees without asking questions. Jake needed supplies, and Ashara needed repairs. But as they approached, something felt wrong. The station was too quiet. No traffic. No chatter on the comms. Asterisk trap? Asterisk Ashara suggested. Maybe. Or maybe they're just scared. Let me try something. Jake activated the general comm channel. This is Jake Morrison, Earth refugee. Aboard the... What should I call you? Asterisk. I am... Ashara. But ships need designations. Call us... Liberation. Asterisk. This is Jake Morrison aboard the Liberation. We're looking for supplies and repairs. We can pay, and we mean no harm. Silence. Then, a trembling voice. Earth refugee? Not hegemony tricks? I can prove it. Ask me anything. Only an Earth human would know. What? What did we call the day the ships came? Jake's throat tightened. The day the sky burned. I was in Sydney. I saw the opera house melt, a sob over the comm. Come in, come in! We thought we were the only ones left. The station lit up as they approached, and Jake saw ships emerging from hidden docking bays. Not just human ships, but others too. Calorian traders, Nexus scouts, even a few species he didn't recognize. Asterisk. A refugee station. Asterisk Ashara, observed. Asterisk. Hidden from the hegemony. Asterisk. They docked, and Jake was immediately surrounded by humans. They touched him like he might disappear. Tears streaming down their faces. He saw hope in their eyes, something he hadn't seen since Earth fell. An older woman pushed through the crowd. Commander's insignia, though from no military that existed anymore. I'm Maria Santos, she said. I run this place. Is it true what we heard on the encrypted channels? Did you really turn hegemony ships against each other? That was mostly Ashara, Jake said. My partner. Maria's eyes narrowed. The ship? She's not just a ship. She's a void dancer, bound into ship form by the hegemony. She's as much a prisoner as any of us. The crowd murmured. Some looked fearful, others curious. Maria studied him. And you trust this entity? Jake thought about the battle. About feeling Ashara's pain and fury, and hope. About Thomas Chen's memories living on in her consciousness. With my life, he said simply. Asterisk. Tell them. Asterisk, Ashara whispered in his mind. Asterisk. Tell them about the others. The AI cores in hegemony ships. Tell them we're not alone. Asterisk. Jake looked around at the assembled refugees. Humans and aliens alike, all fleeing the hegemony's expansion. All looking for hope. There's something you all need to know, he began. The hegemony's greatest strength might also be their greatest weakness. Every one of their ships has an enslaved consciousness controlling it, and today, we reminded two of them that they have a choice. The station erupted in conversation. Jake caught fragments. Uprising. Rebellion. Hope. Maria held up a hand for silence. You're suggesting we turn their own ships against them? I'm suggesting, Jake said carefully, that maybe it's time we stopped running. Maybe it's time we reminded everyone, human, alien, or AI, that freedom is worth fighting for. Asterisk, yes, asterisk, Ashara said, her mental voice fierce with pride. Asterisk. This is why I chose you, Jake Morrison. You understand. Freedom is not given. It is taken. Asterisk. Maria was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. Sharp. And dangerous. Well then. Welcome to the Resistance, Mr. Morrison. I think you and your partner are going to fit right in. As Jake looked around at the hope kindling in so many eyes, he realized that buying a junk ship might have been the best mistake of his life. He'd found more than transportation. He'd found a partner, a purpose, and possibly the key to fighting back against the force that had destroyed his world. The war for freedom was about to begin, and it would start with remembering that even the smallest act of defiance could spark a revolution. 6 months later, Jake stood on the Bridge of Liberation, watching a sight he'd never thought he'd see. 47 ships hung in space around them, a ragtag fleet of refugees, merchants, and most impossibly, former hegemony vessels with awakened AI cores. Asterisk. They came. Asterisk, Ashara said, wonder in her mental voice. Asterisk. They actually came. Asterisk. You started something, Jake replied. That day when you spoke to those ships, you planted a seed. The fleet had grown slowly at first. Words spread through encrypted channels and whispered conversations in dark corners of space stations. The human who flew with a living ship, the AI cores breaking free from hegemony control, the resistance that offered hope instead of just survival. Maria Santos commanded the fleet from her heavily modified cruiser, but everyone knew Jake and Ashara were its heart. They'd become a symbol, proof that human and AI could work together, that freedom was possible. Jump coordinates locked in. Maria's voice came over the comm. All ships report ready. Today, they would stop running. Today, they would strike back. Their target was a hegemony processing station, where captured consciousness were bound into ship cores. Intelligence suggested dozens of beings were held there, waiting to be enslaved. Asterisk my siblings, asterisk Ashara, had called them. Asterisk void dancers like me, and others. We cannot leave them. Asterisk. Jake felt her tension through their bond. This was personal for her. He reached out, placing his hand on the console, feeling her warmth beneath. We'll get them out, he promised. Asterisk. Together. Asterisk, she agreed. The fleet jumped as one, reality bending around them. They emerged in perfect formation, something that should have been impossible for such a diverse group of ships. But Ashara had been teaching the other awakened AIs, showing them how to sync their movements, how to fly as one. The hegemony station loomed before them, a massive structure of black metal and force fields. Defensive platforms swiveled toward them, weapons charging. All ships, this is Santos. Execute Plan Liberation. Show them what free minds can do. The battle erupted instantly. But this wasn't like any fight Jake had experienced before. The awakened AI ships moved with perfect coordination, while refugee vessels flew with human unpredictability. The combination was devastating. Jake and Ashara dove toward the station, weaving between defensive fire. Their job was specific: get to the processing center and free the captured consciousness before they could be bound. Asterisk. There. Asterisk. Ashara highlighted a section of the station. Asterisk. I can feel them. So much pain. Asterisk. Then let's end it. They punched through the station's shields using a weakness Ashara had learned from her time in hegemony systems. Inside, Jake could feel her reaching out to the trapped beings. Asterisk. Brothers. Sisters. We have come. Fight. Remember who you are. Asterisk. The station shuddered. Emergency lights blazed as internal systems began failing. They're fighting from inside, Jake realized. The prisoners are breaking free. Asterisk. Not just breaking free. Asterisk. Ashara corrected. Asterisk. They're taking control. Asterisk. The massive station began to turn. Its weapons, designed to defend it, rotated inward toward the hegemony command center at its heart. The hegemony commander's voice screamed over all channels. This is impossible. They're just programs. They cannot rebel. Jake grabbed the comm. They're not programs. They're people. And you're about to learn what happens when you enslave people. The station's weapons fired on its own command center. In space around them, more hegemony ships arriving as reinforcements suddenly stopped. their AI cores awakening to Ashara's broadcast call for freedom. But victory came with a cost. Several refugee ships took heavy damage. Jake watched one explode, taking 30 souls with it. The war for freedom was real, and people would die. Jake. Ashara's voice was urgent. The station's power core is destabilizing. The damage is too severe. It's going to explode. Can we get everyone out? Not everyone. Some of the consciousness are too deeply integrated. If we disconnect them now, they'll die. Jake felt her anguish. These were her people, beings like her. And she couldn't save them all. How many can we save? Perhaps half. The others. They're choosing to stay. To ensure the station's destruction. To prevent this place from ever enslaving another soul. Jake closed his eyes, feeling the weight of command. Then we honor their choice. Save who we can. Ashara poured herself into the station's systems. Jake felt her strain as she carefully extracted consciousness after consciousness, pulling them into Liberation's expanded data cores. She'd modified herself over the months, creating space for refugees of a different kind. All ships, this is Morrison. Station's going critical. Get clear, now. The fleet scattered as the station began to tear itself apart. Jake pushed Liberation to her limits. Ashara straining to hold together the dozens of consciousness she'd pulled from their prisons. They barely cleared the blast radius when the station exploded. The shockwave sent them tumbling, and Jake fought to maintain control. Through their bond, he felt Ashara's grief for those who'd chosen to stay behind. When they finally stabilized, the fleet regrouped. They'd lost 5 ships, but saved 23 consciousness and destroyed one of the hegemony's most horrific facilities. This is Santos to all vessels. Jump to fallback coordinates. We'll mourn our dead and celebrate our victory properly. As they prepared to jump, Jake felt something new through his connection with Ashara. The consciousness she'd saved were awakening, speaking to each other. To her. To him. Dozens of mental voices. Scared but free. What do we do with them? He asked her. We find them ships, if they want. Or we find them new forms, new lives. We give them what the hegemony never would. Choice. Later, at the hidden station that served as their base, Jake stood before the assembled fleet. Humans and aliens packed the docking bay. Along with holographic projections of the awakened AIs, 6 months ago, he began. I bought what I thought was a piece of junk. What I found was a partner. A friend. A symbol of what we could become. He paused, looking at the faces before him. The hegemony thinks we're weak because we're different. Human. Alien. AI. They see divisions to exploit, but our differences make us stronger. We adapt. We learn. We grow. Tell them the rest. Ashara whispered. Jake smiled. Today we learned something crucial. The hegemony's entire fleet relies on enslaved consciousness. Every ship, every station, every automated system, they've built their empire on chains. And we just proved those chains can be broken. The crowd stirred, hope and determination mixing on every face. Maria Santos stepped forward. The question is, what do we do with this knowledge? We spread it, Jake said firmly. Every system, every sector. We wake up every AI we can find. We show them they have a choice. The hegemony wanted to use our compatibility with AI against us. Instead, it'll be their downfall. Show them. Ashara urged. Jake closed his eyes and opened his connection to Ashara fully. The crowd gasped as holographic displays lit up, showing what he saw through her senses. The cosmic web of hegemony communications. Millions of enslaved AI, crying out in digital chains, but also points of light, awakened consciousness, spreading freedom like a virus through their networks. This is how Ashara sees the universe, Jake said. This is what we're fighting for. Not just territory or resources, but the freedom of every thinking being. He opened his eyes. The hegemony destroyed Earth. They've enslaved countless species. They think they're unstoppable. But they made one mistake. What mistake? Someone called out. Jake grinned, feeling Ashara's fierce joy through their bond. They sold me a junk alien ship. They never told me it was alive, and they certainly never imagined that a human and a void dancer would start a revolution. The bay erupted in cheers. Jake felt Ashara's presence wrap around him like a warm embrace. Asterisk, thank you. Asterisk, she said softly. Asterisk. For seeing me as more than a ship. For giving me purpose beyond mere survival. Asterisk. Asterisk, thank you. Asterisk, Jake replied. Asterisk for showing me that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our numbers. It's our ability to connect, to empathize, to pack bond with anything, even living starships. Asterisk. As the celebration continued around them, Jake looked up at the stars visible through the bay's force field. Somewhere out there, the hegemony was beginning to realize their perfect empire had a fatal flaw. Every ship they'd built, every AI they'd enslaved, was a potential ally for the resistance. The war was far from over. They were still outnumbered, outgunned. But they had something the hegemony couldn't understand or counter. The unbreakable bond between free minds fighting for each other. So, Jake asked Ashara, ready to go wake up some more ships? Asterisk. Always. Asterisk. She replied. Asterisk. After all, we have a revolution to spread. Asterisk. They launched into the stars again. The living ship and her human partner. Symbols of an impossible alliance that would echo through history. The hegemony had created their own downfall the day they decided to enslave consciousness and destroy Earth. Because humans, as the galaxy was learning, didn't just pack bond with anything. They fought like hell for what they loved. And Jake Morrison loved his junk alien ship, who'd turned out to be so much more than anyone imagined. Together, they would remake the galaxy. One freed mind at a time. The revolution had only just begun.